Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're actually going to have a little bit of a talk about the unit variations, the ones that are available currently, and why I don't think any other ones are coming up anytime soon, and what you guys can expect as far as the upgrade process goes, and what you should really be paying attention to when we're talking about NGS. But before jumping out, if you're new here, as always, I'm Chrono. I look over PSO2 content. Would much appreciate to subscribe as we work our way towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. So yesterday I made a video talking about the unit variations that are coming out, essentially what we'll be able to upgrade our units into. And this is something that we've known for a while that was going to happen. When they announced the PHANTASY as well as the XLEO weapons, they talked about the fact that these weapons would upgrade into a higher variant. In the case of the XLEO, they mentioned that this weapon would upgrade into a weapon stronger than that of our Wingguard. Well, they mentioned it would upgrade into a weapon that was stronger. Then it mentioned specifically to upgrade into something stronger than Wingguard, but we all had the assumption and that was exactly correct. And they mentioned that the PHANTASY units would kind of come as base, like they would have their damage, but then they would have the utility passives added in later, specifically mentioning things like HP, PP, and so on. So we had a good idea of what we could expect. Now, the reason I'm making this video is kind of more of a, it's a little bit of a PSA in a sense, but this is more of like kind of an expectation because players kind of have this mindset going at the moment where like, oh, well, these upgrades don't really seem all that, all that useful or important. I'll just wait until they release the Arga Belta Sheza variants of these units. And I'm here to tell you that those aren't going to exist. Well, let me rephrase that. It doesn't make any sense for them to exist. And I'll explain why in just a moment here. And if you were on the train of people thinking, oh, well, what about our purple units? When are we getting the Giga units? You live in a copium train that has not existed for quite some time. Those units just won't exist. And again, I'll explain why those units won't exist, because again, they won't make any sense for them to exist in the current setup and how things have been done. So what we have currently, if you did follow the video from yesterday, or maybe you haven't watched this, totally fine. We know that our PHANTASY units are going to upgrade into 3 different variants. We're gonna have either an HP PP variant, an HP heavy variant, or a PP heavy variant, which is basically exactly what I said was going to happen when we knew there were 3 variants that were going to happen. It made the most sense. It's kind of what most people are going to go after depending upon their builds or what they go for. I feel like most people are going to either go HP, PP, or PP. It's going to depend on how much PP you gain or how much PP you lose versus how much HP you gain for like the HP PP combination. If it's a good amount of extra PP you're gaining, most people are probably going to go the route of just getting the extra PP as opposed to getting HP PP. But if it's like 1 PP difference per upgrade, then it's not really going to matter all that much. So why do I say these other units variants don't really make any sense, or why they aren't going to show up, or why they don't really matter? For that, I'm gonna have to actually pull up something here, so give me just a moment while I grab the wiki here. Okay, so here we have an entire list of all of the armors that we have currently available in the game, and I wanted to kind of go over a couple of things here to kind of give my perspective on why some of these things really wouldn't make any sense, right? So for a long time, for those of you guys who might be a little bit newer, we had these purple armors, and these purple armors were pretty solid. The reason why these were so good was because they came first, and they were always the strongest variant of the armors we had available to us. This is like way back since the very beginning in the Giant Grius era. These armors essentially were the highest value when it came to damage, but they had some downsides. You had like negative damage resistance or negative status ailment, right? So you'd be status affected super easily wearing this armor. Giant and Grius for example. I think Grius had negative HP as well. Oh, Giant had it as well. Giant had -20, Grius had -40. So these armors were essentially glass cannon setups, but the reason why they were so popular wasn't just because they were glass cannon setups, but they came out very early on in the armor tiering process, and you could set yourself up and you didn't have to worry about re-gearing later on down the line. It was a very common thing that later on armors would come out that would be close to, not exactly on par, but close to those armor sets, but they would have a bit more defensive value. I think in one very rare circumstance, it actually pushed past it. In some situations, actually matched it a bit. So the biggest thing was, it was just purple armors were great just from the perspective of not having to go back and re-gear when a new armor came out. And it came out first. So if you were like, I want to gear up and I want to gear up right when it's available, then you can just jump towards it. That's not really a thing anymore. And that stopped being a thing with the Octo armors. So the Octo armor release came out. This came out, I believe, with, check in, correct me if I'm mistaken, this came out with the release of Lucille. And the Octo armors were the first ones to come out. Now Octo came out first. Then we got Vio, and was there not a Vita armor? There wasn't an Octo Vita armor. I thought there was. Is it missing from this list, chat? Maybe I'm bugging. I don't know. We got Octo Vios, and those are solid. And then afterwards, we got the Arga Belta Sheza. Now, Vio versus Arga Belta Sheza, while all these being the same. Oh yeah, the Octo was basically the Vio in this situation. The Octo had the HP. That's what it was. So we had Octos first. Those were just HP, no PP variant added in that one, and it was all statted. Then we had Vios. Vios were of course all statted, but it was PP varianted as opposed to HP. Then we had the opportunity to go, semi-decent in the PP variant area. And the trade-off would be, or so basically we had HP and PP, and the trade-off in that situation would be that you were only 2 statted instead of 3 statted. So if you only needed 2 stats, it was perfectly fine. If you needed 3 stats, it's a little bit more difficult, but totally fine. You could kind of get a balance of the two within the situation. And it was basically Octo Armor, then Octo Vio, and then Arga Belta Sheza. That was kind of the first time these really kind of mattered. Yes, they existed earlier on in the FTIS section, but like this is like when it really kind of settled in, where players like, okay, I'm gonna wait for these to show up, right? This is what we're gonna go for. And they kind of doubled down on it and did it again with the Aenia armors. But this time with the Aenia armors, what they did was they went with the orange variant, the Aenia armor itself, that had 5.5, but also had HP and PP on it. It was pretty solid across the board. These weren't tradable. You were able to go ahead and build these up on your own. Totally fine. Then they released the Vio and Vita variants. Vita variant having more HP, Vio variant having more PP. So solid armor sets, totally okay. But of course we knew that Arga Belta Sheza variants had to be around the corner. And they were. They released Arga Belta Sheza. And the difference here was you had more HP and more PP. It was just the better unit all around, unless you specifically wanted all stats. So unless you wanted all stats, you went with Arga Belta Sheza. It was just the best setup. You didn't need anything else. You were pretty much good to go. The problem with this is it came out last, meaning that if you upgraded to the Aenia armor, if you went to Aenia Vio, and if you went to Aenia Vita, you basically kind of got screwed out of the best armor you could have. Granted, it wasn't damage wise, it was utility wise, so it wasn't the end of the world, but it was kind of a pain in the ass. So what do we have now? Well, now we've got Ectasis armor. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why wouldn't they just do the same thing? Why wouldn't they just later on down the line release an Arga Belta Sheza variant? Well, let's take a look at what Arga Belta Sheza really brought to the table that was better than the Aenia armor. Well, Aenia armor had HP PP. Okay, sure. Arga Belta Sheza, the reason I had the trade-off was that you would lose one of those stats of the 3 stats you had access to for more HP and PP. Well, here's the kicker. You already don't have any HP and PP. You can't lose stats on armor that you already have. You're applying the stats that you want to your armor. The reason why it would make no sense for Arga Belta Sheza to exist, you would literally have to do an upgrade of your current armor and remove one of your stats. And that would give you more HP PP, while you're already getting extra HP and PP from the upgrade armor itself. It just doesn't really fit. At worst, I could foresee there being a situation where there's another upgrade after this setup, and sure, maybe that's the case. But I would find it very difficult to believe they would release this upgrade and then lock you out of another upgrade after talking about this system specifically and talking about the fact that players are being annoyed or concerned with having to upgrade their gear and telling players, hey, go ahead and upgrade your gear, you're good to go. Now, if you're living with a tinfoil hat on and you fully believe that like they're going to come out with another variant, sure, more power to you. That's totally fine. But it really doesn't fit the way they have set up these current armor sets. They're not trying to push you into one specific side or another, right? Like you have 3 options from the get-go. You have basically what's the equivalent of Aenia armor itself, the Vio and the Vita set. Like they basically have all these 3 that are going to be upgrading off of your basic Tassis. It's like having essentially, where was it? Actually, no, we haven't had anything. It's almost like having a base purple armor that had no negatives. It's like, imagine if you had the Eclairo armor and then you took the Eclairo armor and you either slapped on HP, PP, or HP and PP. That's just it. Outside of that, there's no reason for them to introduce anything else. This kind of just covers all bases the entire time. I don't think they're going to go about this process again the same way. At worst, we could possibly see a new unit come out way later on down the line that would follow this, but I don't foresee there being the case where they're releasing these armors. This is a long way of saying upgrade if you want to grab the new upgrade armors. Yes, it's not an increase in potency. I understand that. They release these armors by saying, hey, this is the base armor. You will choose your HP PP variant or your utility variant later. That's what it is. This is just the completed version of this base armor. And that's going to be it for the most part. I don't foresee them being any other armor types that we receive in the near future. That's why we're going to make a difference here. Maybe you have that tinfoil hat on. Maybe you fully believe that there's going to be an Arga Belta Sheza variant of these armors, but I don't think that's going to be the case whatsoever. And hey, dude, honestly, if I'm wrong, then I'll recant. I'm more than happy to make a video saying, hey, look, I was wrong. Now we can expect this all the time. But I don't think they would put us in this position to then release that. It just doesn't make any sense. But what do you guys think? Do you think we're gonna get an Arga Belta Sheza? If you do think we're gonna get one, what is it gonna be? Do we increase in potency? Do we just trade off one of our potencies for more HP and PP? You decide. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. That's pretty much all I got for you guys today. Like if you enjoyed the video. So if you want to keep up with more, as always, thanks to channel members. You guys are fantastic and I appreciate every single one of you. And I will see you all next time. Take care, my friends. Peace out.